can see some great generals who was very effective on the battlefield. Alexander the Great, Sun Tzu, Julius Caesar, Hannibal Agricola, Cyrus the Great, Sargon of Achaia, Nebuchadnezzar II and his son, followed behind him Nebuchadnezzar, Ramses II, Attila the Hun, Shaka the Zulu, Frederick the Great, Joan of Arc, Napoleon Bonaparte, George Washington, George Patton. As we look at some of these people who came up through history who was experts on the battlefield, none was like the General Field Marshal and commander of the Hebrew army and in the Canaanite theater. None was as great and as powerful as this man that went by a one-word name, Joshua. There was a difference between all of the other field generals and Joshua. There was a difference. Most of these other field generals would go into the war room and they would sit down and make plans how they would conduct the war on the battlefield. As they moved into the theater of controversy and wars, they conducted how they would do this. They planned with their advisors how they would do it. Joshua didn't do it that way. Joshua listened to heaven. He listened to what God had to say on how he was going to conduct the battle on the battlefield. He was totally different from it. Our scriptures open up with a meeting between Joshua and the stranger. Let's paint a background on this before we go into it. You see, at this time, the nation of Israel, or a nation now, they had just crossed over in the Jordan and they were getting ready to conquer Canaan, current day Palestine. Getting ready to go in and conquer this area. Now the people knew that they were coming because they had nearly 250,000 fighting men sitting out there starting to move towards the city. They knew that they were coming. Jericho represented a stronghold that was invincible. Jericho was one of the oldest cities, and still is one of the oldest cities in the world. That was a walled city. Now the people of Jericho, they knew how to protect themselves with and it was actually a double-walled city. When they shut themselves in, they had provisions that would carry them for at least 7 years. They had a natural spring that would spring up inside. They didn't have to go out for water. They had everything. They could just shut up and no one can get through. Eventually the enemy would just move away. That's what they were hoping. Now as Joshua stood there and he looked, how am I going to do this? I'm going to have to defeat this. I'm going to have to defeat Jericho. How can it be done? This is a strong walled city. How can I do it? As he gazed over the horizon and he seen this ancient city, and the people were shut up and prepared, waiting for the Israeli army to come through. Well, as he was there, as the scripture opened up says, and it came to pass, as Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted up his eyes and looked, behold, there stood a man over against him with his drawn sword. I can imagine this. As he's looking at the city right there, something catches his attention. And you know something? I believe that it caught his attention because it had an aurora around it, a glow. Something that stood out beyond everything else that was in the plan. It caught his attention. And it seemed like it would have been something intimidating and frightening. As he looked and he saw this glowing person with a sword drawn. Now Joshua, being the captain of the people, he had to protect his people. He had to find out, who are you and why are you here? So Joshua asked him, are you with us or are you with our enemies? With us or are you against us? Now, what this here man said to him, he said, nay. The stranger said to him, no. But I am the captain of the host of the Lord. I now come. And Joshua fell on his face to earth. Now, something I noticed in this, and I just noticed this recently. This had to be bigger than an angel. The reason why is because it said Joshua fell on his face as worship. Angels refuse worship. Angels, they refuse it immediately. They don't accept worship. I can see this as a triophany. A triophany is Christ before the New Testament. The different parts you see in the Old Testament are triophany, and I can see it as that. Sister Murphy, you follow me? Okay. I can see it as that. The reason why is because Jesus never refused worship. Remember Mary Magdalene? When he came into her presence, and she poured the oil on his feet, and wiped it with her tears with hair. Remember that? And everybody else was telling her to stop. Jesus said, let her continue. He never refused worship. Never. All right? So I can see this as him. He says, he goes on, and Joshua fell on his face and worshiped, and said unto him, what saith my Lord unto his servant? What is it you want me to do? What is it? You know, I have a problem here. I'm leading these people, and my predecessor, Moses, told me to carry them on over and lead the way. However, I am faced with a situation. I am faced with a city that cannot be defeated by military might. I have a problem here. What am I going to do about this? All eyes are on me. What am I going to do? And then next verse, it says, and the captain of the Lord of hosts said to Joshua, loose thy shoe off thy foot, for the place where thou standest is holy. And Joshua did so. Before we can move forward, before you can hear from heaven, all right. Before you can be blessed, you need consecration. You can't just come in here any kind of way. Something's got to be pulled off before we can move any further. For a blessing is about to come your way, Joshua. Your prayer is about to be answered. But first, you got to get right. Consecrate yourself. Pull off your shoes. Now, it says that Joshua did so. As a sign of respect, Joshua, he knew he was a commander, but he knew that God was the absolute commander, and no one was above him. Okay, now he's ready for, here comes the war plan. Here comes the game, how it's going to be done. Since Joshua doesn't have the answers, this is how heaven wanted done. All right. Come on now. Now Jericho was straightly shut up because the children of Israel, none went out and none came in. As I stated earlier, Jericho was a city that was built thousands of years before Joshua was even born. And is one of the oldest cities in the world. And some places have fortified walls 25 feet high and 20 feet thick. There wasn't no way you could get through that. No way. No way you would be able to get through that. And the soldiers was able to stand on top of the wall and they was able to see for miles. The Canaanites considered this place invincible. Now, it really wasn't the Israeli army or the Hebrew army that the people of Jericho was afraid of. They weren't really afraid of that. But they had heard